Hi everybody, this is Nils Davis. I'm a product manager and I'm the author of the Secret Product Manager Handbook as well as the Secret Product Manager Handbook blog. Well, today I'm going to talk about Agile. So Agile is obviously a big thing in our lives if we are enterprise software product managers or consumer software product managers. It's a little bit less important, I guess, for people that aren't in software, for product managers not in software. Although I think a lot of the ideas, and I'm going to talk about those today, are pretty important. So what I wanted to do is, and this comes out of a conversation that I had actually a while ago at a meetup. Somebody asked the question, it was a meetup about Agile. Somebody asked the question, well, how can I convince my executives to go along with our ideas for an Agile transformation? They're not on board with the idea. And so this talk today, and I've given versions of this before, is really based on the answer that I gave that day. And fundamentally, the bottom line is that it's all about value. If you think about what executives are trying to get their heads around, we often think about Agile as being things related to sprints and user stories and how long those stories take to build, and the relationship between story points and time. And then of course we always think about retrospectives and things like that. The problem with all of these technical words, and these are really technical words about Agile methodologies, is that they don't get to the root of what Agile really is. And I think this is even a failure of the Agile manifesto, unless you really read between the lines. But Agile is really a way of thinking about value and how to take it to market faster. And so that's what I suggest using as a sort of a framework to talk to when you're talking to executives about what Agile is. So if you think about what executives worry about on a day-to-day basis, the things that keep them up at night, they worry about getting to market faster with high-quality products. They worry about making sure that their people are being effective at building the stuff that they need to have, to get building those products, and that they're getting better and that they're staying competitive with competitors and things like that. And they're also worried about the fact that they keep making predictions about when products will be coming out or when things will get into the market. And those are often wrong. And there's reasons those are wrong. And we could go into a long talk about why predicting the future turns out to be hard. I think you've probably heard that before. Predicting the future is difficult. And of course, if you're trying to predict when a piece of innovation is going to make it out to the market, that's fundamentally a lot of unknowns that you're trying to predict and be accurate about. And it's very hard to be accurate when you're predicting about unknowns, as you know. So these are the things that executives worry about. They worry about a lot of other things too, but with respect to products and teams, this is sort of some of the main stuff that they worry about. And so we know that Agile, we're the technologists, we know that Agile is a good portion of the answer to that. But the problem with saying Agile is that that's a word in English, it has some meanings. It's also a technical word that has many different meanings that nobody fully agrees on, and it's not a business word. I mean, there is this concept of agility in business, which means being able to respond to the market, and that is a part of what we think of as Agile in terms of our product management and getting products to market methodologies. But it's not the meaning that executives really have about agility historically. So the point is, you can't just go and say, well, we're going to solve all your problems by becoming agile. That doesn't really work. It doesn't answer the question for the executives, and it doesn't give them the warm fuzzy that that's actually meaningful to them. It sounds like, in fact, because often they're going to start thinking about sprints and retrospectives and story points. They're going to start to think, well, I don't see how that solves my problem. And even if they're technical people themselves, which executives often are, they know things, they are going to consider that a technical thing that's not necessarily solving their business problem, or that they don't necessarily map it effectively to their business problem. And so that's what we want to talk about today. So what I say instead is I talk about what our goals are is to achieve these goals of the executives. And if we do the following set of things, then we actually are going to start addressing their goals. And there's a secret that we also will be doing at the same time. There's sort of an underlying accomplishment that we make at the same time. So if we focus on and prioritize the highest value capabilities in our products. In other words, when we're working at building our products, we don't think about what's the most efficient way to build this product. We think, what's the most valuable thing I can next deliver in my product? And let me work on that. So that's what we're going to focus on, and we're going to build that. And then once we've done that, we're going to then look at what's the next most important thing, or we're going to reevaluate our list of things to build, and we're going to say, what's the next most important thing I can work on? The side effect of that is we stop adding low value capabilities. That's pretty useful, that we don't do things that are low value. And of course, we're always working on the most important things if we take that approach. We also, another thing that we want to do actively is make the cycle of review and learning for the team a lot faster, so that the team can continually learn how to become better and learn from their mistakes and learn from the things that they've tried and see which things work and see which things don't. And the other final thing that you say is, you say every release, whenever we release a product, it will have the most valuable things that we could have built in the time that we've taken to build them. So in other words, the team is always working at as fast as it can, and it's continually getting faster. The team is always working on the most valuable things it could be working on at any given time. And so that means that whenever we do a release, it's always got the best stuff that we could possibly do, and we did it as fast as we could. So there's no way we could have done better on that, if we follow these rules. Now, you can say, well, how do I know what's most valuable? And that's a whole other set of topics. But the point is, if we have a sense of what's valuable, what's the most valuable, and we can sort of organize all of the list of things that we are thinking of accomplishing in that order, and then work on them in that order, and keep that list continually up to date, and keep our team continually getting faster, we are going to come out with the best possible outcome. Now, and that's irrespective of methodology. But the fact is that what you are doing when you do that is you're doing Agile. That's essentially, if you look at any Agile methodology, that is essentially what you're doing in the Agile methodology. So what I've just done is I've translated a bunch of different methodologies into a high-level set of business goals that are meaningful, I argue, to executives. So whether you're doing Scrum, or you're doing SAFe, or you're doing XP, or any of those things, you're always working on the most valuable things. You've got a mechanism in place to help your team get better, and you've got a mechanism in place to make sure that you continually keep an eye on what's most valuable, and that you're focusing on that. So if you do those things, if you have this value-focused approach to the world, you get some really good side effects. So you're going to make your team more effective because they're always working on the most important thing. They're continuously learning. You're not doing too much trying to predict the future. In this case, you say, oh, what's the most important thing I could work on now? I don't know what I'm going to work on in the future, but right now I'm going to work on the most important thing. And so you remove that whole need to predict the future. And then if you do that in fast-paced iterations, you can learn quickly, and you can get value to market as fast as possible. And by doing that, you get these side effects, right? The side effects is you're agile, your teams get better faster, you get more revenue faster because you're getting things into market faster. And anyway, so you're getting high-value products to market faster, which means you also are getting more revenue faster. Those sort of go together. So if you think about those things, if you start focusing on agile, that's what you're going to achieve as you go along. So that's basically the way that I like to think about Agile. When I talk to anybody about what is Agile, or I talk about how they should prioritize what they're working on, or they say, well, how can I make my team more effective? Or they say, what about competitive pressures and things like that? Well, I always say a couple things. One is, your team cannot go any faster than they can go. And if you make demands that exceed what the team can do, they will fail. And so part of your goal as a manager and as or a product, even a product manager, even though you don't directly manage the team, but you want to make sure that the team is working at their capacity, but you're not trying to get them above their capacity. And as an executive, you want to make sure that's true of the organization as a whole. If you overcommit, and one of the easiest ways to overcommit is to promise things that are actually more than you can deliver because you were trying to predict the future and your prediction was off. That's a great way to kill morale in the company and to end up not delivering much of value at all. That's happened many times in history. I'm not just making that up. So what I'm recommending is that if you think about things in terms of value and immediate value and the things you can work on right now to deliver the most value, and then continually improving your ability to deliver value, then that's where you're going to make the most success. And that's really, when Agile is successful, that's what Agile achieves. When Agile fails, and the reason that waterfall fails, same sort of basic reason, is that you try to start doing too much prediction of the future, for example. You try to start getting the team to do more than they really can comfortably do, more than they can really achieve. Or you try to, well, there's lots of different ways that all these things fail. Oh, the other thing is, another reason waterfall fails is you spend too much effort on things that aren't important. And that can be features that you slip in because you think, oh, those are so inexpensive that I'm just going to do those and I'm not going to worry about the next high priority thing that I should be working on. Or you might actually have a bunch of new ceremonies, right? That's a great Agile word. You might have a bunch of new ceremonies that are actually taking time away from just letting the team deliver on value. And this can really happen, particularly when you get into bigger companies, when you start to have lots of interlocks and things. And some interlocks you have to do. You have to make sure that all the different systems work together in integration testing and things like that. But some of the interlocks do not achieve their goal and just slow everybody down. We all know that that happens. And of course, part of the reason it happens is because we try to predict the future. And when you as soon as you try to predict the future, not only are you going to be wrong, but you're probably going to put some constraints onto things that are going to cause further problems. Anyway, I'm not a big fan of trying to predict the future based on my own experiences trying to do it and all of the failures that I've seen throughout history of people trying to predict the future and being wrong, because it's impossible, right? Even though Nostradamus said that he figured out how to do it. So let's talk about a few things you can do today to put these ideas into practice. So I recommend starting to think about value all the time. Make sure your development team understands the value of what they're working on. I didn't really talk about this much, but this is an area where you can really make use of the knowledge about the value that you're delivering to the market to help motivate your team and to help them get interested in being more in building better things. And I have a whole talk about that as well. And it's related to what I've written about the valuable rubric that I use for sort of as a table of contents and an assessment for stories or functional requirements. So you want to make sure your team understands the value of what they're working on. So I guess another really good side effect that I don't even mention before is that if you focus on value, it makes your team more motivated. So that's a great side effect as well. And then, of course, when you do talk to your executives about Agile, don't get into sprints and user stories and story points and stuff. Talk about how you're delivering value, what value you're delivering, how you're doing it as fast as you can. And you might think about talking about how your team's performance is improving over time due to the fact that you're continually learning. I wouldn't say we're doing retrospectives. You can say that, but I would focus that on the outcome of the retrospectives, which is that we're learning continually. And if you have ways that you can point out that you've learned continually, whether they're qualitative or quantitative, that's always useful as well. So those are 3 things you can do today. There's obviously a lot of ways of thinking that helps you change. The other thing that I also think about in a really good side effect of doing Agile like this is obviously for the team, it makes things better for the development team. It also makes things better for the product management team, which is that you also can be Agile, right? You don't have to write requirements for every single possible feature that could ever be developed. You just have to write requirements fast enough requirements that the team always has the functional specs, the feature specs for the things that are the most important things for them to build, and so they can always be starting or working on the most important things. Now, even that is not easy. It's easy to get behind as the product manager, to get behind in your backlog, but at least you don't have to have every single 100,000 user stories written before you start doing any development at all. So that's a pretty good benefit. Anyway, those are 3 things, and I gave you a bunch of other things as well. I hope this video has been useful for you. I hope you can take some of this information and use it for your own work and for talking to other folks about Agile and how you think about Agile, helping your team get more effective, all those things. If you have additional questions or comments about Agile and product management, or Agile or product management, any of those combinations, definitely leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you. And if you have ideas for additional videos, let me know. I'm happy to take those ideas on and create new videos about topics that are of interest to my audience. And if you're interested in my book, The Secret Product Manager Handbook, which is all the secrets I wish someone had told me about product management when I started, and which will give you a lot of components to help me be more persuasive and find value and focus on value and take value to market, there's a link below that in the notes as well. So thanks for joining me.